Hello. Thanks for coming in out of the rain. We have a talk now all about Amnesty International. And I'm pleased to welcome Anthony, who's going to tell you a little bit about the organization and what they do. Thank you.
Yeah, good evening, everyone. My name is Anthony, as Alan said earlier. Today we are talking about Amnesty International and what we do in over 150 countries all over the world. Just a bit about myself before I go into the details of Amnesty International. I hold a bachelor's in civil engineering. I hold a master's in business. From there, you could see I'm a civil engineering project manager by my core profession, and also I'm a public speaker. I'm involved in so many voluntary organizations, which Amnesty is one of them. In terms of being a school speaker for Amnesty, I go into schools to speak about Amnesty International. Secondly, I'm a champion for UNICEF. I do that also. Also, I'm a country coordinator for Amnesty International. I look after 1 or 2 countries in West and Central Africa. In terms of Kent Foundation for Young Entrepreneurs, I'm also a mentor for Kent Foundation. In terms of Mosaic, I'm also a mentor for that organization. And finally, I'm an incident advisor for Kent Police. So I'm basically here today because I'm passionate about what I do, and that's why I'm taking the time to speak to you about the activities of Amnesty International. Just a bullet point of what we're looking at today. First and foremost, we're going to be looking at the history of Amnesty International. We're going to be talking about what are we all about, what are human rights, Universal Declaration of Human Rights, what do they mean? We're going to show you a video on Troy Davis. Then we'll move on to the campaigns we do all over the world. And I'm going to talk to you on how to get involved. And finally, a second video about I Talk Out Loud. So how did it all start? How did it all start? A man called Peter Benenson was on the tube in London far back 1960, and he read in the dailies about toasting to somebody for their freedom, and they were being detained and being harassed on their human rights. And that was how the journey started. And ever since, Amnesty has been going strong since 1960 up till now. So what are we about? What are we about? That's very important. People, men, women, and children, whatever walk of life, whatever country, whatever gender, whatever status, anywhere whatsoever, we talk about people. We campaign for justice, that is key. We defend rights to freedom. We also defend right to dignity. Everybody should have a level of dignity in their life. And we are a voice for the voiceless. So basically, we speak for those that are not able to speak for themselves. That's just a simple way to put it. So human rights are fundamental rights. They are fundamental rights and freedoms that belong to every single one of us. Everybody has got a fundamental human right that needs to be respected. The traumatic events of World War II made countries to come together, the 50 member nations of the UN, and they decided that there will be 30, what we call Universal Declaration of Human Rights, which should govern human rights all over the world. So what I'll be doing next, I'll be taking you briefly through those 30 articles. They are the founding background for which human rights is being monitored and assessed all over the world. And at the end of the session, I will give you a booklet that helps you learn more about it as you go along. So the first article, Article 1 of the UDHR, it says all humans are born free and equal in dignity and right. Nobody is more important than the other person. Everyone is born free and equal in dignity and in right. Either you are from Uganda, either you are from New Zealand, you are from Australia, everybody is born free. That is what Article 1 says. Article 2, everyone is entitled to the rights and freedoms set forth in this declaration, referring to the 30 articles. Everyone is entitled to those declarations without distinction of any kind. There is no upper level, middle level, or lower level. Everybody is entitled to the articles of this declaration. The third article says everyone has the right to life, liberty, and security of person. Right to life, liberty, and security of persons. Liberty is about freedom. The 4th article says, no one shall be held in slavery or servitude. Slavery and slave trade shall be prohibited in all their forms. You all know so many years, decades ago, human beings are being traded like goods. That is unacceptable. It is unacceptable. So it may sound strange to some of you, but it happens. Human beings are being sold the way goods are sold. And that is not what human rights is all about. Article 5 says, no one shall be subjected or to torture or to cruel, inhuman, or degrading treatment or punishment. In some parts of the world, people are being tortured to confess to what they have not done. So what that means is under hard pressure, because you cannot sustain the torture, you own up to what you have not done, and it forms a basis for prosecution. You can imagine if you are innocent and they've said you've done something that you have not done, but due to torture, you are bound now to accept you've done what you have not done. And that is why that article is standing for. Article 6 says, everyone, everywhere, has the right to recognition as a person before the law. Everyone has that recognition as a person before the law. That's quite important. Article 7 says, all are equal before the law and are entitled, without any discrimination, to equal protection of the law. So what that means is, there is no law for Mr. A and one law for Mr. B. Everybody are equal and subjected to the law with an equal status. Article 8, everyone has the right to an effective remedy if their rights are not respected. So basically, if your rights are not respected, you are entitled to a remedy. You have that right to be defended in the court of law to justify your rights. Article 9 says, no one shall be subjected to arbitrary arrest, detention, or exile. No one shall be subjected to that, to exile, detention, or arrest for any reason whatsoever. And Article 10 talks about everyone charged with a crime is entitled equally to a fair and public hearing by an independent and impartial tribunal. So what it means is that you should be subjected to impartial hearing. Nobody is guilty until confirmed guilty. That is a presumption of innocence unless confirmed guilty. The next one says, everyone charged with a penal offense has the right to be presumed innocent until proven guilty. You are not guilty until you are confirmed as being guilty. Article 12 says, no one shall be subjected to arbitrary interference with their privacy, family, home, or correspondence, nor suffer attacks on their reputation. There should not be interference to people's family life. You have the right to family life, correspondence, and there is no basis for an attack on your reputation. Article 13, everyone has the right to freedom of movement. That is very key in the world we face today. You have a right to freedom of movement within the laws that guide the boundaries for which you are operating. So if you're within a particular country, you have a right of freedom to movement. And that's what Article 13 says. Article 14 says, everyone has the right to seek and to enjoy in other countries asylum from persecution. So if you are being persecuted in any part of the world, you have the right to seek asylum elsewhere where you feel you are safe. Article 15, everyone has a right to a nationality. Every single person belongs to a particular country. Nobody is formed in the space. You belong somewhere, and you must have a right to a nationality, at least one nationality, and that applies to everyone. Article 16, men and women have the right to marry and to found a family. You've got a right to start a family life if you so much desire. Article 17 says everyone has the right to own a property. If you desire it, you have a right to own a property. That is what the article is emphasizing. Article 18, everyone has the right to freedom of thought, conscience, and religion. You have that freedom to your conscience and religion. You are free to practice every faith, any faith whatsoever you so desire. It must be respected. Article 19 says everyone has the right to freedom of opinion and expression and to seek receive and impart information through any media, regardless of frontiers. Freedom of opinion, freedom of expression is human rights of every single person. Article 20, everyone has the right to freedom of peaceful assembly and association. The key word there is peaceful, not a destructive assembly. If an assembly is peaceful, you have a right to it, and that's what the article is saying. Article 21 says everyone has the right to take part in the government of their country. The will of the people shall be the basis of the authority of government. Everyone has the right. You can partake in government, you can vote, or you can be voted for. That is what the article is saying. Article 22 says everyone as a member of the society has the right to social security and is entitled to realization of economic, social, and cultural rights. Applies to everyone. Whichever country you are, you have those rights. Article 23 says everyone has the right to work, has the right to form, and to join trade unions. You have the right to work. If your workplace recognizes trade unions, you have a right to join the trade union in enforcement and propagation of your rights in terms of employment. Article 24, everyone has the right to rest and leisure. Nobody can work for 24 hours. So that's why we have start times, end times at places of work, in schools. We are entitled to rest and leisure. Article 25 says everyone has the right to a standard of living adequate for health and well-being. In so many countries, that is not the case. And that's why we are saying in every part of the world, everybody should have adequate health and well-being. That is the aim that Amnesty is working towards. Article 26 talks about everyone has the right to education. People should not be seated at home where they should be in school. You have the right to education. In different countries, there are different strata that is set. Some will tell you primary education, some will tell you secondary education. But on a general note, everybody has the right to education. Article 27 says everyone has the right freely to participate in the cultural life of their community. So wherever you're living, wherever you're based, when there are cultural issues, community events, you have a right to participate in that. Nobody should be excluded from community life. Article 28 says everyone is entitled to a social and international order in which all these rights and freedoms can be fully realized. And Article 29 says everyone has duties to the community. We must all seek to improve and not destroy the communities we belong to. And Article 30 says no government, groups, or individuals should destroy any of these rights or freedoms. All those 30 articles I've just mentioned, nobody should destroy it. It must be maintained. And what Amnesty is doing is to make sure that all these rights, all these articles are respected in all countries of the world. So what I'll do now, I'll show you, take you to a video of the sort of human rights challenges in the world and what exactly we are doing in that particular instance. Just a second, please.
How many Troy Davises do we have in the audience today? Let's see here. So that's about every hand in here. Well, that's a good job. So if I could get as a group, when I say free, you say Troy Davis. Free. Troy Davis. Free. Troy Davis. Free. Troy Davis. All right, all right.
The Supreme Court has taken the rare step of ordering a new hearing for Georgia death row prisoner Troy Anthony Davis. The nation's highest court ordered a federal district court in Georgia to, quote, receive testimony and make findings of fact as to whether evidence that could not have been obtained at the time of trial clearly establishes his innocence. In 1991, Troy Anthony Davis was convicted for the 1989 killing of an off-duty police officer named Mark McPhail. There's no physical evidence tying Davis to the crime scene, and 7 of the 9 non-police witnesses have since recanted or altered their initial testimonies. Others have implicated the prosecution's key remaining witness as the actual perpetrator of the crime.
Posters went up around Savannah, Georgia, with Troy's picture on. under the heading "Cop Killer Wanted." The next morning, the Savannah Morning News ran with the front page headline with a photograph of Troy, again under the headline "Cop Killer." 2 years after the crime, in 1991, Troy Davis is sentenced to death. Over the last 18 years, 7 out of the 9 supposed eyewitnesses on whose testimony Troy was convicted have recanted or changed their testimony, with many citing police coercion and other suggestive techniques used by the police in order to get them to testify against Troy. Troy Davis has this remarkable family who have spent 18 long years knocking on doors, begging people to listen to their story. We are truly honoured to welcome Martina Correa here tonight. We're also joined by Dejan, an Amnesty activist, a human and civil rights activist, who has spent the best part of his life since he was old enough to know the truth about Uncle Troy, joining his mum and the rest of the Davis family, fighting for justice.
My full name is Anthony Dejan Davis Correa. I am the nephew of Troy Anthony Davis. I'm 15 years old. I attend a school in Savannah, Georgia by the name of Sosie Johnson High. Like my uncle, he always told me that the little bit of things that you do now can affect you in a large amount of way in the future. And as I look at my mom, as the little things she done for help my uncle as far as getting his case out, those little things has grown to be a worldwide, knowledge of his case.
As long as my brother was on death row, so was my entire family. And so I would tell people, I wrote this poem and it says, "My name is Martina Davis Correa, and I am on death row because that is where my brother lives. Not because I've committed a crime, but because I love him enough to be his voice." When they decided that they need to build this case around Troy, the lawyers came and told us, a second set of lawyers said, "Well, we know Troy is innocent, but this is the South. Your brother's black. He's accused of killing a white police officer, and they're going to execute him. And then we'll be able to make a precedent about his case to help other death row inmates." And I was like, get the hell out of my mom's house. My brother has had to be in a death cell 3 times where guards are constantly watching you to make sure that you can't hurt yourself. They take all your clothes, you take your belt, they give you flip-flops and stuff like that so that you can't hurt yourself before the state kills you. I am a voice for Troy Davis and all the other men and women who are unjustly incarcerated. And as long as I have breath in my body, I'm going to speak for them. And as long as I have breath in my body, I'm going to teach my son that a global community doesn't mean the people on your street. It means if somebody is suffering in Zimbabwe, then I'm suffering in Savannah. If somebody is suffering in the UK, then I'm suffering in Savannah. And unless we speak on it, we're not going to be a global community. Thank you.
Amnesty International opposes the death penalty unconditionally in all circumstances. We take no position on innocence or guilt. We oppose every execution unconditionally. We campaign around the world for global abolition of the death penalty. 139 countries around the world have now abolished the death penalty in law or practice.
The UK government's policy, like the policy of the European Union, is that the death penalty should be opposed in all cases and should be abolished. That is what I believe as well. The bumper sticker says, "Why do we kill people who kill people to show that killing is wrong?" And I agree with that. I think it's something that when it's finally abolished worldwide, people will think is as archaic as the things you see in the London dungeon.
So this is Troy Anthony Davis, and I want to thank all Amnesty supporters, all the volunteer workers. I want to thank everyone all over the world, who has been praying for me, supporting me, writing letters and signing petitions and things like that, because this situation could have happened to anyone, but it needs to start with me. They need to continue to let their voice be heard, because if I couldn't get no justice, nobody could get justice.
So moving on, the lesson from there is this, yeah? That was, we do a lot of campaigns. At times we succeed, at times we don't. This was a campaign for at least 20 years to prevent a death penalty. But despite that, unfortunately, he was still killed in 2011 by lethal injection. And people do say, why do you kill because somebody has killed? As much as it may sound to some people that that's what should happen, we don't think taking a life justifies the value of the life that is gone. But more importantly, in so many cases, people have been wrongly accused. And you may have killed them before the truth comes out. Some have been locked up for 30, 40 years before they get to the truth. That's one way. In some countries, it could be a witch hunt exercise where people that are political opponents may be given a death penalty, just a way to silence them. That's why Amnesty International, we are campaigning vigorously against the death penalty. In this instance, that man was still killed after 20 years of campaigning. So moving on from there, so in terms of our campaign, we do so many campaigns, so many of them. I will just give you a high-level bullet point. The Human Rights Act is a campaign we do all over the world. Stop Torture, which is what I mentioned earlier, where people are being tortured to confess to the crime they have not committed. Because they can't sustain the pain, they will say, yes, I did it, so that they can be released. That is something we campaign against. We have actions for individuals. There are times we pick on specific individuals in certain countries, and we start to campaign for their rights to be respected. We have action against countries. There are times we take up countries and campaign against them if they are defaulting on human rights. If you are very current with the news, you would observe that in the last couple of weeks, there has been a massive campaign against Turkey because they have arrested the Amnesty director and almost 8 activists. And for no justified reasons, they are still being held. In terms of My Body, My Rights, another campaign we hold on to. People have the right to how they treat their bodies. Refugees, migrants, and asylum, that is popular. We all know what's going on all over the place. We campaign on refugees, migrants, and asylum. Death penalty, I mentioned that earlier. We campaign against death penalty. FGM, FGM means female genital mutilation. It's not popular here, but it's popular in some places. We campaign against female genital mutilation and child marriage. In some countries, some as young as 10, 11, 12 have been subjected to marriage when they are not matured enough to take such decisions. We campaign against child marriage. Women's human rights, we campaign against it. I'm sure you've seen a couple of things in the last few days about people talking about BBC, someone are paying more than the other, whatever. Equality is always on the front burner. We campaign for women's human rights. Either at the board level, I've had instances of saying boards of corporations are mostly male-dominated and all that. So we campaign for women's rights. And also business and corporates. That's where the stuff like employment comes in, corporate manslaughters, and all those we campaign, and so many others that we campaign against. So how do I get involved? There are so many ways we can get involved with Amnesty International. You don't have to be a full-time employee. I'm not an employee of Amnesty International. I'm a volunteer. I do training for Amnesty. I do speaking in schools. And I do country coordination for Amnesty International. But things are as simple as sending an email. If there's an issue in a country, we can tell you send an email to a particular address just to mount pressure on human rights. Things like signing or posting a letter. We collect letters, we send to countries, we send to presidents. Is one way of getting involved. Some people can take part in what we call a sponsored event. Do cycling to raise money for Amnesty International is one way we do ways of contributing. You can join as a member. Amnesty is not funded by any government whatsoever. It is monthly £3, £2, £5 of members all over the world that funds the works of Amnesty. We won't compromise on those values. So we don't take money from government anywhere. So members all over the world chip in what they can afford on a monthly basis, and that supports the work of Amnesty International. Jobs and volunteering. As much as we have volunteers in Amnesty International, we also have employees that work for Amnesty International. So people can work for Amnesty International when the vacancies are available. So we have paid jobs also in Amnesty International. Pocket protest by sending SMS. For those that subscribe, we can tell you to send a text to a particular person or to a particular group just as a pressure in campaigning for human rights. It's just one way of doing it. Philanthropy. People can sponsor events or sponsor people going through difficulties And we see lots of this on TV, people talking about water issues, malaria, different issues all over the world. We can support philanthropy locally. The next one is in terms of local group. There are local groups all over the country. You can choose to join a local group. You get updated on what's going on, and now you can support the struggle. Other ways is we have also groups in schools. For those that are in secondary school or whatever level university, we have Amnesty groups in schools where they can also do campaigning. I will show you a clip later on of what a school did to campaign for the release of someone that was about to be stoned to death.
I joined Amnesty because I wanted to sort of try and make a difference.
I was worried that, that the people who are in the group for a longer time, they will think, who are you? You just came from nowhere and you're trying to do something here. But then no, people were really friendly.
My friend came along and then, yeah, she told me stuff that she got up to, and it was interesting and kind of just grabbed my attention.
I come here week after week because there's always something new to do.
We worked on a case about a girl called Sakina.
Her husband said that she committed adultery,
which is very strictly prohibited in Iran.
And they want to stone her to death.
The executors dig a hole, they put you in it, they bury your woman up to chest and man up to waist, and they throw stones of about this big, not too big to kill from a first throw and not too small, because they need to make a harm, and they throw it at you until you basically die.
If a member of my family was in Iran or something, and then I wouldn't want them to be treated like that.
She's still on death row now, and we're trying to get her off.
It's not a humane way to punish someone.
If that person has done something and you're killing them for it, it just makes you as bad as them.
What are we going to do then, which is going to have the most impact?
I think we could take a few A3 papers, stick them together and walk around the school so everyone, in mentoring times, so every single student will sign it.
When we have our weekly assemblies, maybe at the end you can explain what's going on.
We can't really write to her and give her hope if we haven't done anything to try and stop her being executed.
Yeah.
And then we take it to the Iranian embassy and sit outside for ages.
Sit outside with it?
Start shouting.
Yeah. Start shouting.
You have your own idea, and then you all bring it together, and then you have something more solid to work upon.
We actually talk to the staff, we say that that's what we are planning to do. Is it possible? If it is possible, we will do that. If it's not, we will talk and find the alternative way.
Setting up for our Amnesty meeting at lunchtime today. Even though I knew these things were going on, it's sort of easier to ignore it and push it aside. But when you actually take action, it helps you become a better person. Yeah, because with Amnesty, you're not just doing it alone, you're in a group, you've got other people helping you. Do you think the signatures are going to work? I think the signatures will have an impact, but I think we need something bigger than the signatures so they can let her go without condition, just free.
Someone from our group just said oh, why can't we do a presentation which would say stop stoning in a massive letters. Let's put it in front of an ambassador so they could read it out and know what we are fighting for. It would make much greater effect.
I painted the table.
Would they have?
If I was to do this by myself, I'll be oh my gosh, what should I do now? But when you've got your friends next to you, it's kind of you're more relaxed.
It's very hard to get people into what you're doing and support you. That's, I think, the most challenging. I did a few assemblies before, but this time it's quite nervous. Currently, we are working on a campaign, Stop Stoning. For people who don't know, stoning is a terrible execution. Next week, we will bring these letters to your mentoring classes, and we would love you to sign them as an agreement to our campaign. And in 1 week's time, we will go to Iranian embassy to hand in a petition and make a demonstration. Thank you.
Does anybody want to sign the letter?
Thanks for signing.
Loads of stop stoning.
against human rights.
Well, we wanted to find out if the embassy would allow us to come inside and talk to them. So I sat down with the Amnesty group and I was writing the letter. I think we should say end stoning because our letters are going to say end stoning. Okay, yeah. I also used some of the stuff Dennis got from the Amnesty website.
Yeah, Iran.
We would like you to see our side of the story, which is that stoning is a cruel way to die as it is very painful and drawn out for far too long.
We're writing a press release to send to newspapers and stuff.
We're writing a letter to our local MP explaining to her about our campaign and hoping to get her in.
What was difficult has been like fitting in, doing how much work we had to do, like going around getting the letters signed, just organising ourselves as a group. But I think we managed to overcome those problems and like pull everything together.
Every one of you is going to be your demonstration. We want spectacle, we want dignity, we want the people passing by to understand what's going on. We want the Iranian embassy to understand what we're doing and why, and we want the world to know.
I was making a leaflet. We came up with Stop Stoning, Save Sakina.
Stop the stoning in Iran. We demand a stoning ban.
This is how they stone people. They use a white cloth to cover the people that are going to be stoned.
Meeting with the Amnesty stuff was really like interesting because you got to find out what they did. If they do it on their own, it doesn't really look like much, but when you combine it with what everybody else is doing, people like Sakina won't be able to get like the hope and the courage they need to continue.
Stop the killing in Iran. We demand a stoning ban.
Finally, we are going to the Iranian embassy to hand in the letters and the petition.
A bit nervous, but excited.
It's really great to see like how all of our hard work has like come together.
Firstly, it's fear, then it's excitement, and then you are fulfilled with adrenaline and you can't even stop. You want to campaign, scream, and just stay there as long as you can.
It's kind of fun at the same time, even though you're doing it for a cause. Just a goal.
Just me and the big letters we had that we took to the campaign last week.
Right now we're making cards. We're going to send them to Sakina in Iran and to let her know that there are people who still trying to help her.
Well, hopefully she'll be proud that someone's like helping her out because everyone wants like help from someone, kind of thing. Yeah.
I'm not really sure what it is, but what I do know is that when I'm talking and trying to help other people, I tend to like get a bit more adrenaline and stand up and actually let people know that I'm here and I'm not just standing in the background. I just get up when I feel like somebody's been put in a position of disadvantage and I talk out loud.
I find it fun. I enjoy Amnesty. Like, I wouldn't mind staying for like 3 hours doing something because it's actually fun, but unless you're just like, how long is it now?
You do become more confident as a person because just like you feel able to have your say.
Joy is fantastic. Like, you are missing like the best experience you ever could get.
Okay, that was a successful one, basically because in this instance, the lady was to be stoned to death because of accusation of adultery. But it was successful because she wasn't killed, but she finally got released. And that's the impact of what the groups can do. Though this was a case in Iran, but a school in the United Kingdom, they planned the stunt and went to the Iranian embassy and they clamored for release of this woman. And it was a successful one. And those are what the groups do, either at the school level or at the community group level. So that's the beauty of it. So any student that want to start any of this in their schools, the opportunity is open for students to do it. So this is just the contact phone number. It's a bit light on the screen there, but just in case you want to pick any information on Amnesty, simply is www.amnesty.org.uk. www.amnesty.org.uk. Or you can send an email to training@amnesty.org.uk. training@amnesty.org.uk. Thanks so much. Have you got any questions for me? Yeah, go ahead, please.
People have to migrate.
Yeah.
What they do is they move to the country next to them, and of course these people then have additional people, additional mouths to feed. What does Amnesty do to try and reduce the fears of the people who migrate?
Well, okay, so what he's saying basically is because people move from countries, one country to the other as a refugee due to different circumstances, and they will go to the nearest country possible, that what is Amnesty doing to discourage or to support them? Amnesty as an organization, what we try and do is to make sure that the rights of such people are protected. That is one. Secondly, there are so many other organizations that provide support for people that are migrating for any reason whatsoever. Maybe they are providing food or providing water or providing this or that. And also, by virtue of statutes, depending on the part of the world, people have a right to seek asylum if their peace is at threat. But what Amnesty does is to make sure that they mount pressure on the countries in question such that they respect that treaty to give them a safe haven of residence. So that's where Amnesty comes in. You have other bodies that maybe UNICEF or so many bodies, International Rescue Committee, so many bodies that support these people when they get to their locations, but we mount pressure on the countries. And I'm sure you are aware of a lot of clamors saying UK has not taken enough people in the last couple of years. And that's what Amnesty will tell you, no, you've not taken enough. We know Germany took 1 million. Germany took 1 million. There was a lot of outcry about it, but ours is to mount pressure to see countries respect that aspect of accommodating people that are fleeing war and persecution. So that's where we come in. We are not much into sort of how they are fed or how they are this or how they are that. Other bodies do that, but we clamor that they should be received and supported. Does that answer your question? Okay. Okay, go ahead.
So if a scout troop or, say, a school want to actually set up their own Amnesty group, how do they go about that?
If you send an email, training@amnesty.org.uk, you'll be given the steps and procedures, yeah? Because the Scout is not a defined school, it's a group. So it's possible to set up within the Scout organization on the Southeast. That email will tell you what and what needs to be done. We have forms to be completed. We need to have someone that will pioneer that organization, and you get an ongoing support of materials at no cost at all. It's absolutely free. But somebody must be willing to spearhead it. And that's all that is needed. Simple email, the Scout in Southeast, we want to have an Amnesty group, you get the support to start it. Any questions again? Okay.
Some years ago, I organized a workshop at which we had the United Nations High Commission for Refugees, the UK representatives, come along. And we asked them the question, what can Scouting do to help refugees? And the answer that the High Commission gave for refugees was, if there were refugees in local areas, we should try and integrate them into the local community so they actually feel at home.
Yes, thank you for that. That's a good one. Yeah, but in terms of integration into the society, it may go a little more than what the Scouts can do. You see, but where the Scouts can help is in refugee camps. They can provide physical help in terms of maybe they're distributing water, distributing foods and all that. But in terms of giving people a long-term place of abode, it's more government-driven. Just for example, the people that were taken from Calais and all that, and people that were coming from Europe due to all the challenges from the refugee camps, they had to talk to the councils and support them to do it. But the Scouts can provide temporary support in terms of what goes on in the camps, but not a long-term solution for the Scouts. It's financial intensive. It's a bit intensive. Any more questions? Thanks so much for your time. Thanks for listening.